to Church on the Rise volunteer induction for 2021. We want to welcome you online if you've joined a team anywhere through the life of this year. We want to welcome everyone who's in the room that's come out tonight. So tonight we're actually going to talk about what it means to be a volunteer at Church on the Rise. What's a necessity to enable you to serve the vision of this house. To serve the vision of this house, what we ask you to do is to opt in to serving the vision wholeheartedly. So no matter where you serve as a volunteer across the life of our church, what you're saying to make God's house shine and function so that unsaved people can get saved, lost people can get found, is I'm wholeheartedly going to put my hand up to serve the vision of Church on the Rise, to serve its leaders and to be a functioning member of God's body, His church, in this expression of faith. And to do that, you'll need to fill out some forms that we're going to go through this evening and that you'll have in front of you should you be doing this online. And all we ask is that you fill that out, sign it off, and we'll store it, and we'll know that you're saying, I'm willing to follow this code of conduct and follow these procedures. In any organisation that you may want to work or volunteer, you will come across one of these pieces of paper. And if you don't have one of these pieces of paper, I would say within the next year or two, these sorts of things will be mandatory across all forms of volunteer services or organisations. And so we're just going to work through, and we're going to start with the Volunteer Church Workers Declaration. And there's a declaration that says what you're going to sign up for, how you're going to conduct yourselves in a team setting, in serving leaders and serving the vision of the house. And if you're a leader, how you're going to lead your teams. And that's important as well. There's some things that if you're wanting to serve in children's ministry, then yes, you'll need to fill out a Volunteer Church Workers Declaration, but added to that, there are some other requirements around children's ministry that you will need to go through as a process and as a, I don't know the word, I'm lost for words, as a requirement, thank you, Pastor Linda, to make sure that our children are safe, that you're fully equipped to help out in that ministry. You may have heard of a blue card system. It is mandatory that every person working with children in our organisation needs to have a blue card. And so we will lead you through that. Once you say, hey, that's an area I want to serve in, then the leaders of that department will actually take you through a children workshop so that you're knowing how to handle working with children. So let's go through the declaration. I understand that the church operates in an environment of numerous legal and ethical restrictions, and I will fully cooperate with the church in abiding by these. I assure the church, in considering me for a volunteer role, that I have no health impediment that will put me or any other person at risk in the fulfilment of my designated role. Other than those matters disclosed by me to the church, which are noted above, at the time of making this declaration, I know of no past behaviour that renders me unfit to serve as a volunteer or which detracts from the obligation of the church to operate as a place of safety to a minor or any other person. So what that's saying is we want church to be a safe place for everyone. So people that are already called church home, this their church home, and for people that are going to call this their church home. Such past behaviour may include being the subject of an allegation of sexual abuse, whether convicted or not, including any type of molestation, indecent exposure, sexual harassment or intimidation. I understand that if I am unclear as to any of the statements on this document, I will seek clarification from a team leader or church leader before signing. I have provided this information and any documents accompanying it in good faith and declare that they are true and correct to the best of my knowledge and belief. I understand that any material, misstatement or an omission from this questionnaire may render me unfit to hold a particular role within the life of the church. I have received a copy of the Volunteer Church Workers Code of Conduct, and I agree to upholding it. And so we're going to go through that as well. And I understand that when considering whether this is an avenue for my voluntary services, my church may refer to ACC, which is Australian Christian Churches, and local church policy guidelines and position papers. I will respect the decision of my church as to where I volunteer my services within the life of the church and whether my services are required from time to time. I understand that a team leader will be available to me to discuss my service. And so that's what we want to provide for our volunteers, and we want to work within that dialogue. If there are issues within the life of you serving in this church that you need to disclose, that you need to talk to us about, then it's open communication. Let's find that out now, not somewhere down the track, and avoid pain, embarrassment, or any other hurt to any other person. So if a person is here tonight and you are under the age of 18 years of age, you will need to sign this document with your parent or guardian co-signing it with you, okay? And so that takes part of our volunteer church workers declaration. You will notice that as you're filling out this form, there is a specific avenue for a referee check. Now, the only time we would ask for a referee check is if you haven't previously filled out one of these forms in our church at all prior to this form. And so that gives us an opportunity to ring previous pastors or other people that you're going to put down as a referee check to talk about things as character, conduct, how you handled things under pressure, and what was your heart of service, supporting, vision, wherever you've been previously. Cool. So you might have the Code of Conduct in front of you now, and so we're just going to quickly go through that. Cool. You're doing really well online. Thanks for sticking with us, and we'll get there. And so we're over halfway, so it's not very painful. So the first thing we want people to understand that our codes of conduct are part of the Australian Christian Church's commitment to a safe, emotional, a safe physical environment as an expectation of our child protection policy with a commitment to providing appropriate duty of care, including health and safety considerations. Volunteering in church life is highly valued, and it's an important part of service to the church. And it's one which Megan and I really consider of great value, and we really do want to honour you for the way that you willingly serve and help us carry out the vision of Church on the Rise. The Volunteer Workers Code of Conduct outlines the standards of behaviour that are expected for all volunteer workers in ACC churches, of which we are one. Volunteer workers are all volunteers involved in serving the local church in teams, on rosters, and in any other way. So basically what they're saying is, if you serve anywhere within the life of the church, you might say, oh, I just come in and pick up rubbish. That is serving the life of the church. Oh, I just help out on Sundays because I'm here anyway. That is serving in the life of the church. And so all volunteers are in their best interest of filling out these forms and understanding what this code of conduct actually is about. ACC volunteer workers' lives are on display and are subject to public scrutiny. And as such, these standards of behaviour should apply not only to church life, but also your personal life. One of the things I love about modelling leadership or fellowship is we should never ever think that I only have to do that because I'm on that team. Like, none of the standards that we want you to learn or on how to serve should only be ever restricted to, oh, well, I only did that because I was on that team. Well, now I'm not on that team anymore, I don't have to behave like that. Like, I would say, how sad that you would think that it wasn't a benefit to you to upskill your life in a way to represent the kingdom on a grander scale, whether you're in kids ministry, serving on the door, welcoming people in the car park, or in a totally different church. That shouldn't be any different to how you live for Jesus when you're in the marketplace, when you're doing your grocery shopping, when you're mowing your lawn, or saying hello to the neighbour over the road. So we want that to be really clear. So here we go. Code of conduct, point number 1, servant-hearted. Volunteer workers are servants of Christ who should endeavour to become servant leaders as modelled by Jesus. The misuse of authority can be a particular temptation when being given a position of trust and power, and this must be avoided. You've been entrusted with something. As stewards under God's authority, we've been entrusted with leadership, and we've been entrusted with people, and we've been entrusted with teams. So it doesn't make you a celebrity. Just because you've got people, you're not all of a sudden a celebrity. You actually now serve at a greater capacity. Because you now have a responsibility to serve your team as much as your team has a responsibility of serving the church, to make sure that they're always giving their best, always having the most resource at their hands, so that you can enable them to be a servant of God with a smile on their face. And so that is vitally important. Secondly, behaviour. Volunteer workers will act in the best interests of those we serve. They must not be abusive in any way towards others, spiritually, emotionally, physically, sexually, including domestic and family violence. Will avoid the use of offensive language, swear words, sexual connotations, racist, racial or religious slurs. Will exercise caution with all potentially addictive behaviours and or harmful substances. Drunkenness is never acceptable. They will refrain from using any illicit substances. Will use caution when initiating or receiving physical contact with those we serve, including gestures of comfort, such as gestures that can be unwanted and misinterpreted. Will act with sexual integrity. Sex is a gift from God and integral to human nature. All inappropriate sexual behaviour is forbidden. Sexual innuendo, harassment of a sexual nature are always inappropriate. They will report their concerns of abuse according to the ACC Safer Churches guidelines, and we have copies of those in the foyer, and they also form part of our induction into children's ministry and working with people in primary and toddlers. We'll treat all program participants and youth ministry. We'll treat all program participants fairly in accordance with the ACC and local church policies, guidelines and position papers. We'll communicate with integrity, including accountable and wise use of electronic communication. Now that's stuff you'd put on Facebook. How many of you know whatever goes on Facebook stays on Facebook? Once it's read, it can't be unread. So we're talking about Instagram, we're talking about Snapchat, we're talking about all those other things that people get up to on their phones and electronic devices. It includes text messaging. It includes sending pictures in your text messaging. All of that communication, your emails, are all things that can come back and can be a harm to people, and we don't want any of those for you, and we don't want that for anyone that may be serving or a part of the ministry that you serve in. Will acknowledge when they're out of their depth and that they do not possess the required skill set in difficult pastoral situations, such as helping a victim of abuse or a person who needs professional counselling, and seek help from a supervisor or church leader. In the same way, if you get in trouble at the beach while you're swimming, and you do this and you want a surf life-saving guard to come and save you, we want you to do the same thing in this environment. If ever you feel like you're out of your depth, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say, I don't know how to respond, please do this. Please don't think, oh, I can't say anything, because it's kind of confidential. I need to say this clearly. There is no such thing in any position that you will hold that requires you to hold any level of confidence. I'll say it another way. There is nothing that can be told to you in your pay grade as a leader or a volunteer in this organisation that should never be handed up the line to leadership, pastor leadership, or board of management that you need to keep to yourself. I need that to be really clear. Please do not think you're protecting somebody. Oh, I can't say because they said it in confidence. Well, you're not helping them because you can't help them. And we need you to be able to say, it's beyond me. And if you made a little faux pas by saying, oh, I told them I wouldn't tell anyone, then you need to go back to them and say, for you to get the type of help that is required, I need to tell someone. And what would be better is if you and I, because I'm there to support you, went and told somebody who can help us. That is vitally important. No one has the responsibility under our leadership to take things home, to have sleepless nights, to carry a burden that is not your responsibility to carry. When people come in and talk to me and I have no idea the context of what they're about to tell me, I always get in first. I'm not sure what you're about to tell me today, but I do need to let you know something right before we start. If you tell me something that is of a criminal nature, that is supposed to be confidential, I need to tell you I cannot keep that confidential, and I may need to take it to my upline or to the police. Do you still want to tell me what you were about to tell me? Now it's up to them. And I would like to think that this is a safe place where people would want to get help. So please don't let people say, oh, don't tell anyone. Say, oh, I'm sorry, I may have to. Because it's not your responsibility to carry that. And this is a big thing that happens in church life. That so many people carry stuff that wasn't theirs to carry, and they feel trapped because they should have told somebody, and then something untoward happens and they wish they had have. And we're not asking you to carry that. We're asking you to get the right help around, and we will help. If we can't help, we will get that person referred to the necessary help to make sure that they're going to get through whatever it is that they're getting through. So please understand our heart in that. We will not take property belonging to others, including intellectual property and things that are copyright. So what that's basically saying is, if you have a list of people's phone numbers, you may have that or may have access to the database because of your leadership position. Should you leave the church, it's not right for you to take those phone numbers, even if you deem them as friends, because it becomes intellectual property that you were made privy to because of your role and responsibility in this church. It's not okay for you to take those and just keep contacting people at random because you're no longer within this family. And so that could be email addresses, and quite simply, you may find at the moment you resign of a position and you move away from the life of the church, that your access to that database would be zero anyway. And so please don't get offended with that. It's helping you, it's helping us, and it's in line with our code of conduct. Number 3, financial matters. This is important. Volunteer workers are encouraged to have integrity in their financial dealings. Volunteer workers must not seek financial gain from the church for their role. Confidentiality, we've already touched on this. Trust is essential in serving the church. Confidential information must not be disclosed and must be treated with the utmost care. Exceptions include when disclosure is required by law, abuse notifications, whether required by law or not. There are concerns for the safety of a person or others, or when the information is in the public domain. Disclosure is a serious matter, and the assistance of a supervisor or church leader should be sought. Commitment to team ministry. Volunteer workers will embrace the vision, values and mission of the church and continue to develop ministry skills through a variety of different means, including team meetings. So if you're on a team and there's a team meeting, please don't just, it won't matter if I go or not. It actually matters. So when we have team meetings, the goal is to inform you and to upskill you. So if there's a certain way we want to change the way we do things or improve the way we serve across the life of the church, it's imperative that you turn up to team meetings, just number 1, to support your leader, number 2, to get the latest information on what's being shared, and number 3, to upskill you for service. Cool. The implementation of this code of conduct is simply this. Any breach of this code involving a criminal offence may lead to a report being made to the relevant authorities. Any breaches relating to harm, risk of harm of a child or a young person will be dealt with under the ACC Child Protection Policy. There are copies, and if you want a copy of that, we can freely give it to you. They're available. They're not under lock and key. If you want any policies or those types of things, you've just got to come and ask, and they'll be made available to you. Any other breach will be considered in the light of the best interests of the volunteer and those we serve. It may result in the volunteer being stood down either temporarily or otherwise. Volunteer workers need to be open to correction, humble enough to modify behaviours so as to not discredit the gospel. And everyone go, Amen. Okay, we got to the end of that. Now there's just some practical things that I just need you to be aware of. In the life of our church, one of the ways we correspond with you is via email. If you don't read the email that gets sent you, then you're missing out on vital information according to the life of our church. One of the challenges we have sometimes when we send communications out, for some random reason, email service providers can put emails from the church in a junk folder. And one week, you get a weekly wrap and it's in your inbox. The next week, the weekly wrap goes out and it's in your junk email and you miss it. So sometimes you just got to keep all your default settings on, or your firewalls, whatever it is that's blocking some things. Whenever we send an email out, I get a little message at the top of our database and it'll say 70 people will not receive this email address. Now, that can be for a myriad of reasons. Either a dot's in the wrong spot where it got put into the database, or the person on their end receiving the email have either blocked or have a setting on their email that says we're not receiving any mail from this database. It could be deemed faulty or have a virus or something. So you just need to keep those checked and keep checking your junk folder so you can tick that little box that says this is not spam or this isn't junk, and so you can get it in your inbox. If at any point you're not getting communications, please sing out and just ask a question. Has there not been anything sent for a little while? Because it seems as though I'm not getting them anymore. And so the many and varied ways that we will try and communicate with you are via email address. So if you have an email, please check that we have the right one if you're not getting them. Through text messaging, like we will send a text message at least once a week. Now, we make this commitment. I'm not going to flood your inbox with 1,000 emails. It's mostly one email a week and a text message a week. Now, if you get more from your team leaders, then that's to be expected because they want to communicate with you. We also communicate on Facebook. We have a Church on the Rise Facebook page. We also communicate via Instagram, and we have several different Instagram accounts. There's a Church on the Rise Instagram account. There's a Church on the Rise Bible reading Instagram account. So there are many ways in which we try and to communicate with you. If you don't have Facebook, if you don't have Instagram, if you don't have an email address or a mobile phone, you're probably not going to hear from us. And so we just need you to keep us up to speed, because people sometimes will change your mobile number, but we'll never find out about that. You might have changed your email address and not updated it with us. There's not only us that you need to be maintaining that with if you have a blue card. Blue card now has a new system, and by the way that you register for a blue card and by the way you renew your blue card. It's actually a requirement of the blue cards that any part of your information changes, that you need to update it so that you can be kept up to speed with renewals and with any other information that a blue card needs from you. Now the blue card is a photo ID. It used to be a signature. It is now a photo. So put on your best gear and look pretty, because you get to carry that around on your blue card. It's a driver's licence photo of not more than 6 years old. Application and renewals require a photocopy of a driver's licence to be witnessed by a JP now. So when it comes time to update your blue card, it's all a new standard. And so you need to take a photocopy of your driver's licence, personally present that to a JP who will sign off, sign it, and then follow the appropriate steps to make sure that you're registered. You probably just need to talk to Kylie because she's our touch point regarding blue cards here. I do not know another state in our country that has such a high level of scrutiny around child protection with regards to blue cards. And I think it's wonderful that we have such a system to make sure people are kept safe and how they administer care to young people, and that young people are protected knowing that the people that have been entrusted to look after them have a blue card and have been passed through all the necessary requirements. It will also be a requirement for children and youth teams at some point throughout this year to attend a Safer Churches workshop. We're just planning on a date around that so you know the policies and procedures that are at play when looking after young people. And when one of your team members or leaders may ask you to do a particular thing, you'll have a bit of an idea about what that looks like and how to follow through on that request. Very good. Thank you, Joshua.